This was our sole means of transportation, and for 1 week our combination driver guide would pick us up every morning early to visit a different temple.
The temple is surrounded by a 6-mile-long wall following a rectangular outline and surrounded by water basins more than 540 feet wide. You can tell by the crowd that this is the most important and the most often visited temple. And for most tourists, the only temple they will see. The Temple of Angkor Wat was completed about 1250 and was built as a mausoleum for the king who ordered it constructed.
Libraries were constructed on each side of the temple with adjacent water pools. Walls of the outer gallery are carved with mythical scenes from the kingdoms of heaven and hell, and festive moments in the royal procession. Some carvings also depict the king victorious in battle. These are obviously battle scenes, and you can see the king on his chariot.
With the temples of Angkor, the ancient Khmers wrote an indelible chapter of the history of their own country and the history of mankind, a stone archive of history and a stone art gallery. Angkor is both.
Beyond is one of the largest temples in the area. And here we have an artist's conception of the type of activities that went on during the construction of the temple. Towers have carved faces which four corners of the world. At the entrance of the temple are figures depicting demons on the right side and gods on the left, performing a tug-of-war on Naga, the mythical five-headed snake. You can tell by the expression on their faces which ones are the demons and which ones are the gods. It is believed that the blocks were rubbed against each other with a compound to make them fit tightly, and that leather straps were used with water to stretch or shrink the clearance between the blocks. Bayon is the only temple out of a group of 200 that depicts scenes out of the ordinary life of the Cambodian. Here are stone shingles covering a passageway. This temple was a series of terraces built into the hillside of a small hill, with a small open structure at the top. Jim is retreating to the cool depths of some of the passageways. The Leper King has been seated in this position for over 1,000 years, and Jim's having trouble holding it for a minute. In this terrace, beautifully carved demons are holding an overhead beam.
The temples of Angkor were no doubt the work of artists of genius, but they remain anonymous art. We do not know the name of any of their creators, for not a single statue or relief bears any trace of the signature of those who sculptured them.
Although it's 1,000 years old, this architecture wouldn't be out of place today. Here the temple dogs guard the entrance to a large reservoir at the top of the hill. Since there were no English-speaking guides, Ruth frequently looked up information about the various temples and things we were seeing. Look at all the treasures lying around on the ground.
The ancient temples of Angkor constitute the most striking architectural complex in Southeast Asia. Angkor was the capital of the Khmer civilization for 600 years to the 15th centuries. It was sacked by invading Thais in 1431, and the Cambodians moved their capital to Phnom Penh, where it remains today. Angkor lay forgotten in the consuming jungle for 400 years. In 1860, a French naturalist, Henri Monod, stumbled upon the ruins and exposed them to the world.
These figures may have been royalty, or they might be temple dancers. The counterpart of which we see today. This was another of the four gates to the Bayon Temple.
We were joined by a school teacher whom we visited later in Singapore. We found this temple to be one of our favorites, as the carvings were beautiful and were very delicate, and time was kinder to the many statues. The monkey gods were very well preserved. This is a rain god seated on a three-headed elephant. Two heads are better than one. Statues of the Birdman were guarding the central shrine. The carvings here tell of the slaying of King Kansa, one of the early Cambodian kings. Back at the hotel, John and Jim took a short elephant tour around the grounds. John got a little seasick on this trip. The filming of the movie Lord Jim with Peter O'Toole took place in this temple. The rain was a welcome relief from the high temperatures of over 100. However, it did increase the humidity. The scene that most typifies the Cambodian temples, and most often painted by artists, is the face on the Temple of Ta Som. Even Disney has reproduced it on his Jungle Cruise ride. The slow strangulation by the banyan trees is most evident here.
We climbed the highest hill in Cambodia for a vista view of the temple of Angkor Wat and the surrounding jungle. Although we flew to Siem Reap to see the temples, we decided to join the natives for a never-to-be-forgotten 7-hour bus ride back to Phnom Penh. This was a ferry crossing.